monosodium glutamate, yeast extract, natural flavoring, who knows what that is, soy protein isolate. There are some things that just should not be on your pantry shelf and you shouldn't be eating them. When you go to the grocery store and you get cream of chicken, cream of celery, cream of mushroom soup, or any cream of soups, you're essentially getting something that you're paying way too much money for something that's probably not good for you. But don't worry, you can make them at home really, really easily. And I think you're gonna be surprised how quickly you can do it. That is really good. Cream of mushroom, cream of chicken, cream of celery, cream of anything soups are such a great meal base for a lot of comfort foods or winter meals, from soups to casseroles to stews to all different things. But again, they're not very good for you, and they're actually really expensive for the ingredients that are in there. You can make your own at home way cheaper and really quickly. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to not only make a fresh version of these soups that whips up in just a few minutes. You're going to be surprised how easy it is and how great they can actually taste. But we're also going to be making a shelf-stable mix that you can just keep on your pantry shelf, pull it out, mix it with a little bit of water or milk or broth, whatever you have on hand, and you'll have your very own ready to grab, really quick and easy, shelf-stable cream of anything soup. Now, when we're making cream of anything soup, it really comes down to making a simple white sauce. It also is just about the exact same as making a gravy. The only difference in all of these things are the ingredients that you choose, but they all start with the same basic types of ingredients. Number one, you need a fat. Number two, you need a thickener like a flour. You could also use an arrowroot powder. You need liquid, and you need some seasoning. That's the basis for all of them. With that, you get to choose, mix and choose all your seasonings, all your liquids, your different flavors, even the fats that you use to make wonderful different flavors. So let's talk about the specific ingredients we're gonna start with today for a cream of chicken soup. I love to make my cream of something soups with butter. Everybody likes the flavor of butter, but you can also use other fats. You want it to be a shortening, which just means it's a fat that's solid at room temperature, but liquid once it's heated. Another really great option is using a really good quality home rendered lard for that. Today, I would love to be using my own homemade butter, but we don't have any right now. So I turn to my next best option, which is to get some really good quality butter from Azure Standard. Most of the ingredients today come from Azure Standard. It's kind of where I do any shopping that I have to do if I have to get ingredients from outside my own garden or my own freezer or my own pantry. So we're gonna start with a half cup of butter. We also need that thickener. So today we're using a half cup of an all-purpose flour. Now, aside from changing this to an arrowroot powder if you're gluten-free, you don't really have a lot of flavor options on this. So just grab that good all-purpose flour. Make sure you get unbleached, something that's good quality and doesn't have a whole lot of extra ingredients. For our liquids today, because we're making a cream of chicken soup, I'm using a chicken broth. Now you can see this is actually a really nicely gelled broth that I have in the refrigerator. We had chicken a couple days ago and then we made a great broth out of it. You could use boxed broth, store-bought broth. You could use your own broth. You could use vegetable broth, beef broth. Like the options are really wide and varied, but since we're making a cream of chicken soup, I'm using a chicken broth right here. We also want the cream part, right? Which is milk. We're gonna go with 2 cups of just a good quality milk. This is just our fresh raw milk that just came right out of the milk cow, but you can grab whatever you have in your refrigerator and use that instead. Now for the seasoning. You get to play a lot with the seasonings. You have a lot of options, so don't feel stuck to what I'm showing you here today. You can take this any direction that you want, but today I'm gonna show you just a really good kind of basic seasoning that's gonna get you a flavor that you're pretty used to if you're used to the stuff out of the can. You're gonna wanna start with a flavor intensifier. Now this is freeze-dried chicken broth powder. You could use a chicken bouillon, you could use a vegetable bouillon, You could use the Better Than Bouillon paste. Go ahead and check out the blog post that I have linked for you for the exact recipe and all the exact amounts of this. You're going to want some onion powder, some garlic powder, a little bit of salt, some celery salt. Ooh, this is so good. This is our homemade celery salt, and some black pepper. Remember, this is a great starting spot, but don't feel stuck with the ingredients that I just gave you. You get to play with those seasonings a lot. Let's jump in and see how easy this really is. Let's go ahead and turn our heat on to medium whenever you're making a cream of your choice soup. We're gonna start by melting our butter all the way down. Now, if I wanted to make a cream of celery or a cream of mushroom soup, I would start by putting this butter in, getting it melted, and sauteing a quarter to a half cup of celery or mushrooms. If you wanted to be really, really decadent, you could get some of the really fancy dried mushrooms. Azure carries the porcini mushrooms or the portobello mushrooms, and oh my goodness, they are absolutely delicious, and they make for an amazing cream soup like this. Oh, so good. Okay, let's get this melted. As soon as your butter is all the way melted, go ahead and sprinkle in all of your flour and then quickly stir it all the way in. You can use a whisk if you want. I don't find that it's usually necessary, but you want to make sure to completely stir it so that there are no lumps left and it works out all of those little bits of flour. You don't want any dry bits. You don't want any lumps in your cream of choice soup. Right now, our flour is pretty much completely incorporated. It'll keep incorporating here as it cooks a little bit. But right now, if we took our next step and made the rest of this sauce, it would have kind of a raw flour flavor. So we want to let this cook for just a minute or two, just until it starts to get very, very lightly brown. Remember, we don't want to make a full-on like copper colored roux. We want to make just a slightly cooked, cook off all that raw flavor in that flour. This is, again, only going to take a minute or two. Make sure you keep stirring the entire time. All right, now we want to go ahead and add all of our liquid all at once, at least the best we can. There goes all that broth. Start stirring. And as soon as that's incorporated, add that milk. At this point, I like to go ahead and add any bouillon or any broth powder, whatever it is that you're using to intensify that flavor. It's just going to give it a minute to go ahead and completely dissolve before we take the next step and before it thickens up too much. So right now, we're just going to stir every so often, making sure to stir all the way across the bottom and let it start to thicken. All right, the soup is all now nice and thickening and boiling. You can see it's all bubbly and starting to thicken up. So I'm getting my seasonings all right in there. I'm actually going to whisk those in so that they're in there all the way. And right now it's thickening, but it's not quite as thick as you'd want it for a condensed cream soup. So at this point, you can just let it simmer for as long as you want until it's the right consistency. This is looking really good to me, and oh, it smells so good. Let me take a bite. Oh, this is so much better than anything you would ever get in a can. Not only is it taste better, it's so much better for you. Like, everything about this is just better. But I do know that this takes a few minutes. Now, this is delicious. It's ready to go. You could just throw some chunky ingredients in there right now and you'd have a ready soup, like chicken and some carrots. Oh my goodness, it would be so good. But Sometimes we need things to go even faster, but we don't want to sacrifice the quality. We don't want to sacrifice the health aspects of it. We don't want the bad ingredients. So now let's take a look at a dry, shelf-stable mix that you can have on hand for when you need that really, really quick grab-and-go meal. And you'll be able to just add a little bit of it to some water or some broth or some milk, and you'll be ready to go in just a few minutes. Let's take a look at that. I love getting to have this dry cream of your choice soup on the shelf. Now it has a few ingredients, but you're gonna see this comes together so quickly. First, we're gonna start with some dry milk powder. You could use a dry rice milk powder if you wanted to go dairy-free. Remember though that a non-fat milk powder has about a shelf life of about a year, whereas if you go with the full fat kind, it's only going to have about a 6-month shelf life. So you'll want to make sure that you're thinking about that when you're thinking about how much of this you make and how long you want to store it. Same thing here, this is cornstarch. Make sure you get a really good quality cornstarch. You don't want anything that has had any genetically modified anything going on with it. So get a good quality cornstarch. And again, the amounts and the exact list of ingredients will be printable over at the blog post, so just follow that link. Then we have some potato flakes. These can also be by the term of instant mashed potatoes. This just gives this a great texture really quickly. We have some dried onions here. I'm actually using my my home freeze-dried onions, but you could get just the minced dehydrated onions that you can buy at Azure, at the store, wherever you get them. Some dry parsley flakes, onion powder, garlic powder, some marjoram, celery seed, let's see, a little bit of salt, and then some pepper. Now you could use white pepper if you don't want it to stand out. Personally, I like the kind of rustic look of just the black pepper, so I always go with the freshly ground. Look at how easy that was. Like, that's really simple. It goes together super fast, and this is gonna sit on your shelf for at least 6 months ready to use. We just need to get a lid on it and get it really well combined. Shake, shake, shake. Number one rule of everything on the homestead, label it all. Don't forget the date. All right, let's take a look at how to actually use this when you're making a recipe. Using your cream of choice soup base is actually really easy, and you have a lot of choices with it. Now this is just kind of a standard soup base, has a little bit of that chicken bouillon in it. Remember, you can change that out if you want for a vegetarian bouillon, even a beef bouillon if you want it, but you can also flavor things after the fact. So today I'm going to show you how to use this, just making a really, really simple dish for my lunch today. We're going to use some chicken, and because the chicken is already going to be in the dish, I want to go ahead and add some extra flavor, and I've got some mushrooms chopped and ready to go, and I even have some freeze-dried celery that I'm going to throw in and use too. So this is going to be a cream of everything soup, and it's going to work out really good. It's going to be really delicious. So the first thing we want to do is take our soup base, and we're going to add 2/3 cup of this to whatever liquid we have. Now again, I'm using some chicken broth here that I had in the refrigerator. If I didn't have this, I could use some milk. I could use some plain old water if I wanted to. I might want to add a few more seasonings to it by the time it's all said and done if I did just plain water, but it does work out great. And I'm just going to add it to the liquid while that liquid is still cold from the refrigerator. This looks really thick. It's just because it's that good homemade bone broth. So I'm just going to stir that up and let it sit for just a minute while I'm working. Okay, now I'm just going to toss just a little bit of butter into the pan, just enough to grease the pan. Then I'm going to throw in my chicken. It's already been cut up into nice little diced bits. And right about the same time, I'm going to toss in my chopped mushrooms. These are the wine cap mushrooms that we grow here in the garden. Oh. They smell really good. I'm going to put in just a handful of celery. You could use fresh celery. You could use whatever you have on hand. I'm just kind of making this up as I go from what ingredients I have. I'm just going to stir this up until that chicken is all the way cooked and the mushrooms have melted down just a little bit. Okay, now the chicken is cooked all the way through. The celery has kind of taken on a little bit of moisture. Just going to put our broth and soup powder right on into the pan. I'm going to stir it up and let it cook for just a minute. It's not going to take long and it's going to start to thicken right up, so keep an eye on it. Okay, that took less than 1 minute to thicken up so nicely. Look at this. Essentially what you have here is like a chicken pot pie filling, especially if you threw in a few extra ingredients right at the beginning. You could pour this right over rice, over noodles. You could just eat it plain. You could add a little bit more broth and make a nice thickened chicken stew. That was so easy. It's so easy to use. It's so easy to make. I really encourage you guys to get this on your shelf and use it instead of that store-bought stuff. And hey, if you want to know something else that will really make your winter meals easier, check out this video right here where you can have cookies on your shelf just waiting for you to make anytime you have any unexpected guests come over for the holidays. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.